Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. And welcome to Adobe Live. My name is Terry White, Worldwide Design and Photography Evangelist for Adobe. And I'm joined with my guest once again for part 2, day 2, Aundre Larrow. So he's going to talk about photo editing. What's up, Aundre?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
It's a funny day. It's a little gross here, but Philadelphia is treating me all right. It is still a beautiful view from this window. I'm in like a colonial home, streaming in my friend Dana's house. Shout out to Dana. And it's nice. I'm actually excited to see some of the edits from today. I'm pretty sure there's no Lightroom big updates that have happened in the last 24 hours, but if they are, I'm sure Terry will tell me.
Nothing in the last 24 hours. We're good.
We didn't make a third Lightroom called Lightroom
No, it's not a whole new version.
But I do feeling good.
Yeah,
happy to see you. No, I said feel good. Happy to see you.
I do see some people in the chat, especially a bunch of people that were here yesterday. So Wade, Steve, Sean, welcome back. Carl, is that Biola? Welcome. Hello. Cheryl, hello. And Rabia, hello. 9:30 there, 9:30 a.m. or 9:30 p.m. Probably p.m. Jennifer. Let's see here. Andreas. Bunch of people in the chat. Michelle, welcome everyone, and welcome back for those that were here yesterday, and welcome for the first timers. So today, again, like I said, it's part 2. So if you missed part 1, you can certainly go catch that on the replay. And if you're not able to stay for the whole 2 hours today, you can certainly come back and watch the replay as well. Speaking of the schedule, before I forget, let me go ahead and cover that now and get the housekeeping out of the way. So we have a packed agenda for the day as we did yesterday. So this morning there was a getting started with Even Abrams. Then there was the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge right before the stream at 9 a.m. Pacific. And we're on now doing photo editing from 9:30 Pacific to 11:30 Pacific. And then after that will be the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge. And then after us will be the Daily Creative Challenge, and after that will be Branding and Identity with Julia. Then at 2 p.m. Pacific time will be the XD Daily Creative Challenge, and then the last 2 streams of the day at 2:30, Draw Along with Kyle Webster. So people that like to draw from scratch will catch Kyle. And then last but not least, the Design Off with Voodoo Val and Victor. They'll be doing a design off, so can't wait to see that.
That sounds super high stakes.
I know. By the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, I see some folks over there on YouTube saying hello, and Zoran and Olina and Kyle, and welcome everyone. But if you really want me to see your chat, because I'm not going to be looking over there the whole time, be sure to pop into b.net/Adobe Live. That's the chat window that I'm going to be paying attention to from here on out. So if you want to hang out on YouTube and watch, that's fine. But if you want to participate, head over to b.net/Adobe Live. That's where we're going to go. How do you not draw from scratch? I guess that's a good point. Well, you could start with a template, could start with a coloring book. That's how you could draw it, not from scratch. But yeah, to your point, he will be doing it from scratch. All right.
Wait, I won't be drawing anything. Let me be very clear.
No, no. I mean, he meant Kyle, not you. Yeah, I won't be drawing anything either. So, Andre, yesterday you got into a lot of the
new features. Yeah,
features and how explaining a lot of the features in Lightroom, and I think you did most of it on your iPad. What are you going to do today? Today we got some user submissions.
We do have some user submissions that we're looking at right now. A couple from a couple of my homies. I always say this about Arabella, so let me make sure I say it. I got some from the illustrious Arabella Espinosa, so I want to make sure I shout her out and get some for edits. But Today, what I figured would be that we would go over color grading a little bit more. We would touch on versions again. And then I was actually going to take a short period of time and show folks how to make presets. Since we showed how to download other people's, I think it's helpful to show exactly if you want to make a preset, how you can do that. How you can do that.
Gotcha.
So cool. Before we get too far into it, the first thing I wanted to talk about, since you are all things tech, I brought my current iPhone with me, the 11 Pro, and then I have the 12 Pro.
And I you got the new one.
Yeah, I was really
that was my gratuitous excitement about tech. You got the new phone.
I drove it here on a Tesla jet, Terry. Jesus.
There you
go. No, so essentially, I was gonna say my hope was that I shot something with it. I got it a little bit before it came out. I was lucky enough to work with the Apple folks, and I did like my first experience with it on Petapixel. And so I took some portraits that I actually are right here in Lightroom. Imagine that. So all of these photos I took were all with.
Hang on, let's get to those. There we go. All of those were taken with the new phone.
Yeah, and so just to kind of go into a couple of things. First of all, we're in Lightroom. There are two Lightrooms. There's Lightroom, the flagship, and Lightroom Classic. This Lightroom is a cloud-based service. And so one really sweet thing about it is, every time I zoom, I want you guys to know I didn't know how to do that before Terry showed me. We want to go to this filter option, this little triangle with a tail. And when we click it, this pops down and we see camera. Go to camera and we can see that, I did actually take some with the Mark IV, but we have some photos with the 11 Pro, the 12, and the 12 Pro. So you can click in and see exactly what you shot with. So for me, sometimes if I shoot with multiple cameras, there's a reason for it. And so it's easier for me to find certain things. So like I said yesterday, I take stills for United Shades with Kamau Bell. And one thing that I enjoy about that show is kind of learning how to photograph as like alongside a videographer and a director. So I have to use a mirrorless camera, which is silent. So I know if I'm looking for any photos that we're taking during interviews, I can go ahead and use this filter feature and look for photos that I took with the R6, which I showed y'all, or maybe even with the iPhone. So here you'll see the photo I took with the R6. The other thing I like to do is my little like not so secret pro tip is I can type in edited, hit yes. And then you'll see the stuff that was edited. So just to show y'all some of the things I really like about this new phone, this is like something something you could have easily gotten maybe in an iPhone 8, no problem. But I thought that the LiDAR did a really good job here of actually getting good depth of field. Like, yes, we're getting a little bit of that like artificial right here, but the way that these leaves look, this seems to really understand the focal plane really well. I'm not telling anyone to buy a new anything. I know that everything is expensive, but for anyone that's curious about the tech, it's important to like talk about it honestly. Terry, do you have the phone already?
I do not have the phone yet. I'm waiting on the Max.
So the things I like about it are, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. So I'm waiting to hear your review.
The things I like about it are, it is lighter than I thought, but like I feel like that they went back to that 5 design that's a little bit thicker, so it like holds a little better versus this being slightly more compact and thinner. Almost feels like you have to crunch down on it sometimes, but this is just slightly larger but also lighter, so it's just easier for you to hold. It's easier for me to just do that simple like little pinky videography or photo without like worrying about it falling as easily. I also have the MagSafe case, and that's actually pretty cool. So the MagSafe stuff, y'all, is that like magnet technology that they rolled out. It's actually like it's like kind of rad, and it's nice that instead of always having to like peel sticky wallets or other things to the back of your or pop sockets or whatever to the back of your phone, it actually works.
And that's funny. I see people with those little credit card holders and little wallets in the back of their phones, and like the reason I never did any of those is because I use the back of my phone for wireless charging.
100%.
And so now that wallet feature is magnetic and you can just pop it off and still charge, that makes all the sense in the world.
And for folks who are like, why are we talking about this? Because it's actually important. I think people.
Well, it is a camera. It is a new camera, technically.
No, it really is. Like I really there was a headline I saw when they announced it where it was like the iPhone 12 Pro is a camera disguised as a phone. I'll tell you that I think I thought that the cameras were good up to the 8, and then I felt like somewhere along between the 8 and the 10, like since those were back to back, there was like it felt like the phone was doing more of the photography than the lenses were, and I think that they've really like nailed some of this depth and some of these things just to give you like a good sense, but you also still recognize it's a phone. It's not trying to do too much. So here are just some photos I took with it the first couple days I had it, just to show like texture. Some of these aren't even edited. Like this is, I know it says edited, but this one I probably just brought the brightness up. This is with the ultra wide. This is with the telephoto just to kind of show how the things change. But here, even I think it still does a good job. With curly hair and like super straight hair between Noemi and this other subject. It manages color well. But like the number one thing is I just think that it like feathered the edges of subjects a little bit easier. So the portrait ended up being, I think, a little bit more natural, but still gave you the depth that you're looking for. I know people are always like, I need to get a fancy camera, but I'm not so sure that's necessarily the case. Like you can create depth
it's just really funny that we're in the age of, had you not said you shot these with a phone, no one would be able to just say, oh yeah, that's a phone shot versus, oh yeah, that's a professional camera shot. Like it's just, we're past that point now. Whereas before it was easy to tell. They were always grainier, they were always noisier. The quality just wasn't as good. You can usually tell a camera phone shot from a regular camera, but those days are gone. It's like I'm looking at these and I'm like, if you hadn't told me you shot these with your phone, I would have never guessed.
Yeah, no, I was very happy with it. I think that if people are curious, if you choose between them, I would pick the Pro just because I think the telephoto is a more useful lens. I think that it handles its highlights well and the detail. Like my best example would be the photo that I had on the top of the Instagram post. I was really impressed with this detail here.
Yeah, look at that.
Just really, really impressed. Like for it to catch this detail on the gray in his hair, for it to get this light, like I think this might have been portrait mode, but I still think that there's good dynamic range here. Go ahead.
And the interesting thing is that, and I saw the keynote where they were announcing the phone, and Apple talked about their new ProRes format. Not ProRes, Pro Raw format that's coming out. But that's not here yet, and you're getting these results. So these aren't even raw files yet, and you're getting these kind of results. So that's pretty freaking, amazing to think that the phone in your pocket now is getting that much better.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I definitely think so. I think that like it's I'm impressed, and I think that often when we get new tech, we're like, oh, like does it have huge leaps and bounds? But sometimes we don't recognize how helpful those incremental shifts are. And so with that, I mean, like think about, I don't know if you ever played video games, but like the jump from like a PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 2. So when you go from the 4 to 5, it's a big jump, but you're starting to just really fine tune things. They don't seem as small to you, but this photo in particular, this I could have taken on my, definitely taken on my 5D Mark IV. You'll see that it doesn't, it still gives you depth in its hair. Before, I think when they first started adding portrait mode, it was having a hard time with different hair textures, and you're seeing it handle bokeh well, be able to handle highlights and shadows. Like I really wanted to shoot it throughout the day and use it just to make sure I could say like, yo, this is mixed light. Most of us live our lives with mixed light, and it does the job it's supposed to. This isn't like, I didn't like do a huge production to make this look special. Like it really kind of delivered. And I even tried like with these, didn't do a ton of them. And if someone says that, you can go ahead and check over here. Another nice thing about Lightroom is, if y'all see, it's kind of hard to see, but next to the edit panel, there's like a tiny little bump in the right corner that lets you know that's been used. And you'll see that I actually haven't used anything else here. And if we go to the edit panel, all I did was put my highlights up and my exposure up. The difference between these is pretty minimal. Go ahead.
Okay, so here's the dilemma, and this is, again, I'm anxious for the fall when they roll out the RAW format for their own, camera phone, camera/phone app. So this was always my dilemma with the 11 Pro. If I want the portrait feature, then I can't shoot RAW because that feature only works in their app, not shooting RAW. But if I want RAW, then I would use the Lightroom camera to get RAW results. That way I got, everything. I got everything the sensor can capture, I can go play. Have you tried shooting to DNG with the Lightroom camera on the 12 or 12 Pro? And do you notice a big difference? Obviously, you're not going to get portrait mode, but have you noticed any difference in quality? Because those look really good for those not to be RAW.
No, I haven't tried. That was my thought too about, like, I see how whenever they release this, it's not going to be
because basically what's going to happen in the fall when they release that software update and they can shoot RAW with portrait mode with all their other modes, then you won't be as dependent on capturing with the Lightroom camera as you are with the current phones, or the old phones, I should call them now. So that's what I'm really anxious and excited about, is that
I'm curious.
We'll get all their processing magic from the standpoint of capturing the image, but in a RAW format with all the details.
Yep. 100%. So yeah, no, just trying to figure it out. Like it's been, I'll say this, like, I really do think that it's like rounded a very strong corner. Like, I really like that, like, just the difference, even slight, between these. Like, here, actually, let me show you something something I was gonna actually bring up today. These are also some things that I photographed on my phone. Forgive me, all. I forgot to open up QuickTime. So while we wait,
I did too.
You can buy a phone somewhere on the internet, and we support you in that process. Not screen capture. That's not right. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah, there's a question I saw. I think it was from Marcos. Marcos is saying, what does he mean by when I said shoot in DNG? And Marcos, I'm going to hopefully give you that answer in just a second here. We both forgot to put our mobile devices in the stream, so let me do that right now. And let me switch over to it. I should have my phone. There's my phone now. And let me bring that over, and I'll hide everything else. Oh, I don't want to hide that though. Hang on, let's hide this. And okay, that's good enough. All right.
Terry, is it in movie recording or in screen recording? Oh, there it is.
The very first one. All right, let me switch to me for a minute here.
Okay.
All right. So Marcos, what I was referring to is that when you use the built-in camera app, so the one that says camera in the upper right-hand corner, that's it. You just get whatever the camera can do. So you get the portrait mode, you get all the features of your device's built-in camera. But if you go to Lightroom and you take a photo in Lightroom, which I'll pop open, I've got a little device here, or a little setup here, if I can ever get that open. There we go. You'll notice at the top, it says DNG at the very top of the screen. So if I tap on that, I can shoot either DNG, meaning RAW, digital negative is what DNG stands for, or I can shoot JPEG. So if you don't, up until now, if you didn't use a third-party app like Lightroom, there was no way to get RAW files from your native camera in your iPhone. So you had to use a third-party app to do it. So my third-party app, of course, of choice was Lightroom, and then I could shoot. And for example, if I switch it to DNG, even with my 11 Pro, my older camera here, let's get this out of the way. Let's get some of the stuff out of the way. And let's just take all that out and capture that as things fall. There we go. So now that photo that I just captured is technically a raw file. So when that syncs up, it's going to be a DNG. It's not going to be a JPEG. It's not going to be an HEIC file. It's going to be an actual camera raw file, just like shooting raw with a professional mirrorless or DSLR. So that's what I was referring to. Until the 12 Pro came out, and until Apple does that software update that they promised in the fall, you still do that. You still use a third-party app to shoot in DNG or /RAW. But what they're saying is that in the fall, they're going to do a software update that lets their camera app shoot in RAW, their new RAW format. So you can capture those portrait modes, those shallow depth of fields, all those different modes in RAW. That's what I'm excited about. So that's what I meant by shoot in DNG. I want to convert my files with the DNG conversion app. Okay, yeah, but yes, that's how you convert your camera RAWs format into DNG. So you can do it that way as well, or just use Lightroom. Classic will let you do that. All right, back to you, Andre. Andre, you're no longer sharing.
Oh, sorry. I thought I had to unshare for you. It's all good.
Nope, you don't.
All right, let me minimize you. So, as we know, it's Thursday. But I wanted to show some other photos I took with the phone, just to give you an idea of how I think it's handling depth and color. Like, really lovely sense of depth, sense of color. These are not taken with the iPhone camera. I mean, with the Lightroom camera. This is just regular Apple Cam. Y'all are seeing there's good detail in his hair. Like, what I was basically saying is it's managing hair better. Like, maybe in the 10, it would have given you a little bit of feathering in her hair, which is mostly straight, and really kind of had a harder time with Jordan's hair. But here you're seeing it's managing it well. The full like kind of gamut of colors is working out. Then I tried some other stuff in portrait mode, but I haven't had a chance to talk about this yet. Y'all are seeing all this work for the first time. Selfie cam obviously is still doing its thing, but yeah, I feel good with it. Like, I like this photo. I might like edit it in Lightroom and post it on my Insta. And just something I wanted to point out. Also, Terry, this studio had motorized. Like, if you look in this corner, it had motorized seamless, and it was a terrible idea. It just led to us having a hard time getting all the seamless down. I'm not a fan.
Motorized or just,
it's motorized. So you like would press one button, it'd be like roll two, and that. But the problem is they were so close together that if one bumped, it was dumb.
Yeah, I've got 3 that are manual, and it can be a pain just with 3. I can't imagine with that many.
So folks, what Terry and I are talking about in a studio, usually there are these little, like this studio has these little black pieces that unroll the paper for you. There's different kinds of studio backgrounds you can use. There's a cyclorama. Oh, sorry. I have that feature where if you double tap the back of my phone, it does stuff. And I see now I made a mistake, but there's like a thing called a cyclorama. That's just like a big, like built-in swoop into the building. But here in, what's I going to say? In this studio, they don't have a cyc. So this seamless is just big pieces of paper. If you want to try to shoot on seamless, all you need is natural light. You can add strobes if you'd like. I know Terry shoots a lot of those. I shoot a lot of strobes. Also, this is for a class I did with a company called Moment Lens, teaching people how to use, how to work in their studio for the first time. So if you have questions about that, I'm sure Terry and I could stream about it at a different time. But just so you know, so we're not talking about this, usually what happens is you just pull the paper yourself, or you have like chains, but this studio had it on motorized, which I wouldn't advise. It seems expensive for no reason. But yeah, I like how the 12 Pro manages. It would
be cool if it worked. If you pressed a button that said number 2 and it rolled number 1 up and rolled number 2 down, then I could see it. But even that, you still have to go and pull it yourself and straighten it out. I don't see the advantage of having it motorized.
I'm trying to think what else I can show y'all that I think it did well. These are just random photos. But no, I think that over time, like, it's just obvious that that LiDAR, it's had little changes that show you depth slightly better, which I think has always been a weakness for the phone. And so just going forward, something to keep in mind, like when you're looking for a new phone, even whether it's this year or 3 years from now, like I think the 12 Pro delivers on a lot of good things. And I think ergonomically it feels good. And also this blue is a great color. So enough with this like pseudo Apple commercial that I'm subjecting y'all to. Let me cut this out. I didn't mean to speak about that specifically, but I know a lot of people are interested. So that's enough for the phone. I'm gonna plug the iPad back in. As I say, it's not an Apple commercial and then subjected to more Apple products. Terry's good point. Like I think when the Pro Raw comes out, we should probably do a stream. If you want to see that, please let us know in the comments.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how Pro Raw holds up. Because like I said, for what I'm seeing with that not being raw, that being, you know, a JPEG in essence, that looks amazingly well for what it's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anyone is curious, even though I'm on Terry's stream and we're on Behance and where it says Adobe in the title, this is all edited on Lightroom. So something else.
Speaking of editing,
let's get into
to some editing.
So I closed QuickTime like a dummy when I'm about to go right back into it. I don't know why I did that. Here, I'm just gonna switch over to this movie recording. We'll look at me for 1 second. I name all my equipment different things for video games and anime that reminds me of stuff. If you remember, we were looking at these photos of Maria yesterday, and you know, we played with our color grading. And so the way color grading works, just so we can get back to it, is you go over to color, and right here, these red dots that you see are where I press. You hit color grading, and essentially you have the option of choosing the color or the tint for the highlights, which is this right here. Your midtones. Oh, so excuse me. I forgot that it's white. Okay. The highlights are the rightmost one that is white, midtones, and your shadows. So as you move along, you can say, okay, so I want my highlights to be a little more red. So you're seeing how just obviously the brightest parts of the image are being impacted and what that looks like. This isn't supposed to, right now what I'm doing is supposed to look good. It's supposed to show you like how split toning works. And then the luminance is the brightness of that color. So like how bright or dark that color is. Blending, I believe, Terry, is just how it blends with the skin or the image in general. So it's essentially like lowering the opacity when you're in Photoshop and you're altering layers.
Well, yeah, it's blending between blending and balance. Yeah, it's blending between the original color and the color you're adding. So if you took the blending all the way up to 100, what would that do? Let's see. Yeah, so you get more of the color you chose versus blending with the original color.
So blending will allow you. It's essentially like a command A for feathering. So you just choose how strong or kind of subtle you want this to be. So I'm always trying to be subtle. Balance is what I'm curious about. I'm assuming this determines the balance between the shadows and highlights. I don't actually know what this does. Terry, can you tell me?
So blending is the blending between the original color and what you did with the color grading. Balance is between the shadows, midtones, and highlights. So it's the balance between the three.
So midtones, so just so we're clear, like this area for face, these are the highlights. These are the midtones. So midtones are kind of like, if you look at me right now, you're seeing that I'm sitting in front of a window, you're seeing highlights on my face. And then maybe on the sides of my face where there's less light, you can see a little bit of shadow. So obviously our shadows are here. But the midtones are the grays in the image. Instead of the whites being right here and the blacks and shadows being right here, your midtones are largely everything else. And so one of the big changes in this version of Lightroom, our flagship cloud product, is that now instead of split toning where you can only alter your shadows or your highlights, you can now change your midtones as well. So you see that like as you're moving along, most of the image is being impacted by your midtones. So this might be something that maybe you could have done using tint before or temperature, but you have much more control of it here. Obviously, this isn't like the most perfect image, but it is a style that you can definitely use in many different ways. When I was in college, Nike came and was doing a feature about students at our university, and they were doing some of their new college apparel. So what they did is they split tones so that the highlights was your brighter color for your collegiate colors and the shadows were your darker. And I went to the University of Florida. So orange were the split toned highlights and blue were the split tone shadows. And so it's something that you can do. A client could ask you for it, and now it's easier for you to do it here. The center obviously brings you back. you can always double tap. If you're like, oh, I don't like this, double tap that circle and you'll get right back to the middle. And then as you move along, obviously with each one, I think it's helpful to just play. And if you're like, this is too much, you can blend it down a little. And now all of a sudden we have something that we think, oh, can I do before and after while in color grading? 1 second. You see that we have something that's actually not egregious. It's the shadows are a little red, the highlights are a little yellow, and the midtones are just a slightly brighter green. And it feels kind of honest and a little different. And so sometimes it can be helpful when we're showing edits to show really drastic ones, just so you can understand how it works. So we were talking about how to make a preset. I believe you can do it on your computer. I mean, on your iPad and iPhone as well, or on mobile and on tablet as well. But if you can't, we're going to find out in a second. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring our shadows up so I can see our hair a little bit more. Exposure down 1. Bring our contrast up. And then remember yesterday when Terry was complaining about the curves, I brought the black point up on the curves.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Wasn't complaining. Wasn't complaining.
We'll add a little texture. Remember, we had all these cool versions. So we'll create this version and we'll call it Preset Baby, because I like to name weird things. So now we have Preset Baby. We're done. So now let's go over. So we're going to tap these 3 dots in the top right corner, and you'll see Organize, View Options, Copy Settings, and you'll bet it, Create Preset. So now it's going to say, where do you want the preset saved? Before you name it, just make sure it's saved in the right spot. So I have like Visco presets, I have some Mastin, I have some other ones from when I made them, some Behance ones. But I'm going to go to User Presets, and I want to change this instead to Saved Presets. And we're going to name this Terry White Color Grade Test Preset. Long name, but I'll never forget what it is. We talked about profiles and presets yesterday. And something that you want to keep in mind is you don't have to copy everything over when you make a preset. Sometimes I actually find it helpful if you go and click this little arrow to drop down the light. Turning off exposure and turning off white balance can be helpful, because since every image is different, you're not going to be sure if you want the preset to brighten or darken your image. You can still change your highlights and shadows, but something I would advise is to avoid exposure as well as white balance related ones. Excuse me for bumping my microphone, but when you do that, you have a better ability to make your preset more universal. Because you might bracket your photos and say, I'm taking a bunch of headshots of Terry, I'm going to like them all the same way. But maybe some of the photos I'm going to shoot a little darker, some a little lighter. So let me not alter my exposure at all. Let me just make sure this preset gets the color that I want. Does that make sense? Terry, do I have any questions or anything? Or am I just kind of babble?
You do. Ricardo just popped in and said, any suggestions for a first-time minimal budget studio? I already have a flash.
Oh. Minimal budget studio. So one cool thing about having a flash is, let me see.
I would say, while Andre's coming up with his answer, I would say, so it's really about when you say studio, that means a lot of things to a lot of people.
Yep.
So studio could be a physical location and you're thinking about what to invest in next in that physical location. Or you could just mean your camera gear. Like, okay, you got a flash, what would be the next thing to get, so forth and so on. So I would say that let's pretend it's not so much about the location as much as it is about what your next investments or your investment should be. Mm-hmm. Camera bodies come and go, as we always like to say.
Yep.
Aundre brought this up yesterday that nothing's better than good quality glass, so good lenses.
Yep. Lenses more than bodies, man. Talk about bodies,
because no matter, like, you can get, it's hard to buy a bad body today, but you can certainly buy bad glass.
Yes.
Or glass that isn't as sharp or isn't as good. So, but on a budget, I would say just if you don't have the money to invest in lenses right now, because you said on a budget, I would say you have that one flash modifiers. would probably be my next level of investment that you can do pretty cheaply. Whether it's gels, whether it's soft boxes, whether it's shoot through diffusers, whether it's reflectors. So just, it also depends on what you shoot. So you said studio, I'm assuming you're shooting people or products. So just finding ways to modify that flash to get the results you want. That would be on a budget. That would be the next thing I would probably look at, if not glass, if not lenses.
Let me show you what we mean. This is a photo from a set that we shot just recently, what Terry's talking about. There's a giant piece of white here that's just diffusing sunlight. And then there's no light being used, but it's like a studio environment in that they're just wrapping him in light. Or you'll see here, I'm just simply using a single pro photo light with a diffuser on it. So diffuser is like, think about when you have soft curtains and light still comes through it. Also, I'm so sorry if we're speaking down or explaining something you already know, but I think it's actually a really helpful thing. If you already have a flash, you can do a lot of things. There's a simple flash sync cord you can get that can separate your camera and your flash. So you don't have to have it on camera, where you can simply just keep it over here, or you could put the flash on a tripod and have it fire remotely. One thing you want to figure out is like, as we're taking photos, this photo I took with my phone, but if you're looking at a photo from an artist who you like, ask yourself where the light is coming from. Once you figure that out, you can modify the light the best you can. So let's say you only have that flash. If you have a large room in your home that has maybe a large window, you can use the window as your fill light, which is like light like this, that is soft and it's coming in and it's just adding ambient light to it, so you can see everything that's going on. It usually affects your background, and then you can take that flash you have. You can get, like Terry said, a diffuser for it, or if for whatever reason you can't afford that right now, just get some straight up like what's that white, like not cardboard, but that white stuff that comes when you like buy a TV, and just styrofoam, that's the word. You can keep it above it, and so wherever you bounce that light, like think about when you're in a white room and you see strong light come in and it kind of wraps around everywhere. You just want to be able to guide the light using white and black. White to add light and black to take it away. So like here, let me see if I can find an example.
While you're looking for that example, so a couple other questions came in, or just suggestions.
Oh, yeah.
Is like Kesno, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, is asking, is natural light always the best way to go? And I would say, no, it's not always the best way to go, because best depends on the situation and the subject and what you're trying to capture. So for example, it's pretty overcast here today. It's like, I'm not going to get a lot of great natural light today, but if I got a flash or even a continuous light, I can shoot no matter what the outside lighting conditions are. So people that say, well, I only shoot natural light, what you're saying to us is, then you're a part-time photographer, because you can only shoot when the light's good. So if the light's not good, what are you going to do about it?
Yo, Terry, this man Terry has been on one since yesterday.
Yeah, you need to be able to control light no matter what the light source is. So whether it's natural light, whether it's artificial, which light is light, whether it's artificially produced light, it's really a matter of being able to be confident in the way you control it. So natural light, great. Diffusers, reflectors, ways to control that light and put it exactly where you want, as long as the light's good. If the light's not good, then what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do to bring in light that is good on the days where light is not good outside? So natural light's awesome, but you have to be able to still work when it's not awesome. And that's my point.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And so, what Terry's saying is like, studios can be terrifying. Like, I'm not going to plug this now because I think it's weird to plug classes, but at some point later, if y'all follow me, you'll see I'll share about it. Moment Lens makes lenses for your iPhone, Samsung, Google Pixel. And they've been just kind of realizing that Terry's whole career is about this. As you start to get into photography more, editing more, there are an infinite number of questions. And one of the ones that I think about a lot is that fear that you feel when you step into a studio for the first time. And so we recorded a class for 2 days earlier this week that'll be out later this year. And if you want to watch it and you can't afford it, let me know and I'll try to get you a code or something. But basically it's just, I tried to work on something that explained to 15-year-old me that you shouldn't like be panicked. Like you'll see that this is a photo I just took with my iPhone in the studio with natural light. And you see that there's like these shadows on this side, obviously, because the light's coming from the other side. And so what happens if I just add a strobe or a flash with some fill or some diffusion, and how will that react? And sometimes because it's expensive and you already bought all this glass or whatever, you're terrified of what happens. So just figuring out ways to practice is really important. So I really appreciate that as a question. And hopefully what Terry and I said was helpful. And if not, if you DM me later, we can just kind of talk through like, hey, I want to spend $100. What would that look like? Or $50 or $500. Right. Don't want to take up too much time with it, but just wanted to say like it's all really doable. And if you're also curious, I'm sure Terry has how-tos for this. You can ask him, but his 3 lighting setup is actually very, very good.
Yeah, and I'm looking for some examples here. Lighting doesn't necessarily have to be super expensive. When you look at just speed lights, the little portable battery operated lights that come from your various camera manufacturers, the problem that scares most people away from those is that your camera manufacturers charge an inordinate amount of money for those lights.
Yeah.
Like normally $300, $400, $500, $600, $700 for a speed light is insane. When you think about that little bitty thing that's about this big costs that much money when you could get a studio strobe for that same amount of money. So it's like, why am I buying this again? So one of my favorite examples, and I've used this in my my photography masterclass here on Adobe Live. The last time, if you guys go look at that, look at the replay for that, I did a studio shoot, a product shoot with 2 speed lights. And the speed lights weren't the manufacturer speed light. Like I have Nikon speed lights that cost hundreds of dollars, and I purposely did not use them for that class. I used a brand, again, I'm not repping them or anything, I don't make any money from this, Yongnuo. Because Yongnuo is like they're the knockoff brand that's dirt cheap that does just as good. Because at the end of the day, no matter what the brand, no matter what the cost, it's a bright flash of light. So does it produce a bright flash of light consistently? If it does, then it doesn't matter what it costs. So,
He's right. And to be honest, to be super real, we were using Profoto lights for this. I love Profoto lights. Profoto is super nice to me. I have no shade to them. Them lights are expensive. And the biggest thing you want to worry about with your lights is how hot do they get and how fast do they cycle. So I don't have any strobes with me because I'm not in my house and I don't have strobes in my house. But when you fire a strobe, it'll make this sound to let you know it's ready to shoot again. But, if you can't afford that, I promise you, I used Alien Bees from when I was 19 years old until I still have them. In fact, I gave them to one of my friends. The lights I have in my home were gifted to me from a friend when their studio closed down. Like these things are expensive, but maybe you can ask someone to try to play with them. But they're essentially just lights that are like, a strobe is like a microwave and the sun had a baby, right? It's like a really strong flash of light. I guess since we're talking about it, we're just gonna go through a couple quick tips. If you're shooting for the first time,
before you go on, I just posted a link to a Yongnuo speed light. Again,
great.
Just Google or just search Yongnuo speed light. I'm not even sure which particular model this one is, but they make them for all the popular camera brands, and it's under $100, and it does. I'm gonna dare say everything that the $300 to $400 to $500 or lights do for less than $100. So if you're on a budget, by all means, start cheap. Start with something that works, and then figure out what you don't like about it. When you get more money, you can then upgrade to something better. But for all intents and purposes, the other reason I like Yongnuo is that if I do have to go out on location and I'm shooting in bad conditions, bad weather, rain, wet, I'm going to walk out into the middle of a lake, and that light falls into the water. Oh no, I lost $85 versus I'm not going to say it, but I lost $500. So big difference when something happens to it. Like you're still hurt, but you're nowhere near as hurt as you would have been for that very expensive one that fell in the lake or dropped off a cliff or whatever, 100%. Or fell and just cracked open. Like it's like, oh well, Yeah, I'll learn next time to maybe, tie that down better, but it's not as big of a loss.
Oh, totally. I think that like what I was going to say is just quick little tips. If
So
you're
wait,
just
one last thing is because this question, this guy's asked it twice now, and I just want to make sure I cover it before you move on. So Barry's asking, I think this question came up twice now. Can you use your phone as your lighting? Yes and no. So there is a light on the back of every phone now. That's this little white circle there. That is a light. But here's the thing with that light or any other tiny light source like that. The smaller the light, the more harsh and bad it looks. So the smaller the light, the further away from the subject, the worse it looks. The bigger the light, the closer to the subject, the softer it looks. So while you can use that as a light, you can even use the front facing just a white screen as a light.
Yep.
Use anything as a light, but now we start getting into the conversation of quality of light. So the quality of light on that back of the phone is not great. Just like the little pop-up light on your camera is not awesome. And that's why most photographers cringe when they see somebody with a pop-up flash taking pictures because it's in the wrong position and it's just a small little tiny light that looks awful. So to answer your question, yes, but will you be happy with the results? Probably not.
No.
All right, Andre, take it away.
Yeah, all light's not created equal. If you, once again, are trying to figure out a studio-related thing, you could just have a big window in your home. If you don't have any curtains, take the whitest sheet you can with some diffusion, drop it down, even just clothespin it up, and just take some photos with one person that's facing the light in different directions. Just start to figure out how you want to use and shape that light. When you're in studio, essentially, all those different things like modifiers Terry's talking about, they are helping you put the light in a direction. Like one's a cone, and that makes the light more of a spotlight. One's a big box, so it makes it like a big piece of light, like the sun with a curtain over it. Another one's a grid. Like they're all very different, but it's just an opportunity to play. Also, if you can rent stuff, use it with your friends. But a couple quick studio tips. Check the sync speed of the lights. That's important. So your shutter speed on your camera, generally lights, Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, the sync speed somewhere between a 1/160th and 1/250th. And that means you cannot have your shutter speed be higher than that, or you'll get a photo that is half. Actually, I think I can show you all this because I took a couple example images. You get a photo that is half. We're not going to make a preset right now. Or no, you know what? I can still leave that preset thing up. Let me show you this instead. You'll get a photo that has like a black shadow or curtain on it that lets you know, like here, for example, if you don't keep the shutter speed low enough, then the light will not be able to go as fast as your camera. And so the best way for me to show you that is if I go over to info in this bottom right corner that we're looking at here, you'll see that I shot this.
For some reason, your camera stopped moving. Like we still hear you. I still see what you're doing on the computer.
That's super weird. Yeah, it just didn't. It's not lit up. That's so weird. Okay, let me finish this.
No. I mean you talking like your webcam is not moving anymore.
No, I know. The webcam light is off. I don't know why, but let me finish talking about this, and then
go ahead.
We'll close this idea out. Yeah.
Yep.
So here, you'll see that if you check the info, you see that I shot this at 1/640th of a second, which is too fast. So remember, your shutter speed is how quickly the shutter opens and closes. And if the shutter is faster than the strobe, then you're only going to light a certain part of the image, which kind of defeats the whole purpose. So you'll go from, here's another example, like this to this, because now the camera can be fast enough. That's one. Two, what Terry said, sometimes if your light's big enough, you can move it. Instead of turning it up and down or changing any of your settings, sometimes the solution is just moving the light closer or moving the light further away. The closer it is, the more you're going to see it, and the further away it is, kind of the softer it's going to be. So this is like relatively far away. I'm not saying this photo is great. I'm just showing you as an example. But like here, for example, let me see if I can find one. He's further away from it. It's above him. And so it looks a little bit more like what you might see if you're photographing someone outdoors in the sun. So that's kind of your look there. And then that hopefully answers the question about studio stuff. Are there any other questions, Terry? And let me see if I can fix my, I'm going to not share my screen for a second, see if I can fix my camera.
All right. While Andre is working on bringing his live camera feed back in, just looking through the questions here, mostly lots of comments about mastering light and working with shadows, and a white screen on the face of the phone could be a fill light possibly. Yep. Also, we talked about that tiny light on the back of your phone, shooting that through a diffuser. Yeah, now you're moving.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure. That was so weird.
Shooting that through a diffuser could also, provide better light than just the tiny light itself.
Totally. Well, the issue with this light is like, it's a phone light, and so it's an LED light. It's kind of similar to when you're shooting film or you're shooting a video. I know y'all probably don't want to see my face, but this is what we're doing right now. When you're shooting video, if you look at Terry right now, Terry has a light on him that's a little bit more, it's a little warmer. So you'll see that he looks like natural. And generally when you're editing photos, even if your white balance says that this image needs to be this slightly bluer thing, often you'll add a little bit of warmth because people find that more welcoming, more warming, exciting, etc. But this light they're trying to keep it true to daylight. And so you'll see it almost feels like a surgical in a way. This light, it does its job, so it doesn't like inject strange things onto your face, but it can feel very cold. And so I wouldn't advise this to be the light you'd use as a strobe. And if you were to use it, yes, you should add diffusion, but it might not be strong enough for it to really do a whole lot. Like obviously we're adding light, right? But you see how hot, just for it to get strong enough to my face, it's just too hot.
Right. So while it could work in a pinch, it's probably it wouldn't be my go-to scenario. It would be my, oh no, I don't have anything else scenario. So just, everything's relative. Could you get away with your camera phone light? Sure. Should you be trying to get away with it? No, you should probably work on something a little bit better.
I'm going to try to find something to show you an example. I have a couple of those. If y'all remember back when those were super popping on Instagram, when people would use phone lights as like a thing. So Terry, if you could, let me unshare my screen because I don't think anyone needs to watch me scroll. But when
we're not looking at your screen right now.
Okay, cool. So I'm searching for it. But while we wait, are there any other questions? I'm going to probably scroll for another like 45 seconds.
No, but we probably should. We got like an hour left. We should probably get into some of those edits of.
Oh yes, we definitely should. Let me get this. I'm almost there, and then we will go there right after. So
now another portable bright light that could be used for photography is a company called Loom, or I don't know what the name of the company is, but their product is the Loom Cube, and it's literally a cube. A cube shape, like just a little, maybe 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch, bright, super bright light LED cube. And it's adjustable for daylight balance, and it comes with warming gels and all that. I would say use something like, if you're just trying to have a portable light in your pocket with you at all times, I'd say use a Loom Cube over the one on your phone.
Yes,
so I'm putting the link in for that as well.
So I have some examples for you, Mr. White, because I know how much you love when I show things. So
let's get to it.
Am I sharing?
Let's add you in. There you are.
Okay, so this is a photo I took on a phone of my friend Karsten, and this is with us using the phone screen as the light source here. So it's just turned all the way up, and it's just as close to off camera as you can tell. You can see right here at the bottom of his jacket that you can see that light hitting, but it's just pointed at his face. I wouldn't necessarily advise lighting from beneath because it feels very Blair Witch Project, but this is the best we could do at the time. We were in a building that we were not allowed to be in, but it's years ago, so I can't get arrested for it anymore. Anyway, the difference is here, this is a photo I took on my phone. Wow, 257 weeks ago, several years ago. And here instead, I used the flash as the light, and you'll see how it's just so harsh on his face and on his hand that it worked here because I wasn't directly onto his face, but it just wasn't remotely like what's the word? Flattering at all. But here it works because I want him to pop out from this background, right? So it's like foreground of a rainy day, him, like all the way throughout. So just an example, because I know that we're talking about it, but you want to see it as an example. So anyway, let's get into these edits. The thing I was showing y'all is how to make a preset. So just real fast, just to double check.
Wait, Robzilla's in the house saying what?
Oh Lord. Do we not have moderators to keep people like Rob in here? Yo, also Terry, I don't know if you saw Rob is a big deal. Well, he's already a big deal, but LeBron James shared Rob's illustration yesterday, so his head's pretty big, and rightfully so. Yeah. Rob's a talented guy.
I'm surprised he even got time for us right now.
Rob's sitting here watching it, just man. Yeah. If y'all don't follow Rob, you got to check his work out.
How's he even have time to be here? I don't know.
Rob, can you illustrate me and Terry? Like, come on, man. We need to get that star treatment. We got to get up to your level. Or no, I need to get up to your level. Terry's already there. So just real quick, we're on the iPad. I'm just showing you how to make a preset. I believe you can make it across all platforms. Terry, can you make a preset on mobile?
Yep.
Okay. So after you've gotten your edit in a place you like it, you have a couple versions of it like we discussed. You can tap this top right corner, these 3 dots, and you have the option to create a preset. Before you name it, I want to make sure you're clear. Put it in a preset group that makes sense for you. So I'm going to put it in my saved presets. Those are presets that of course, this is in alphabetical order and I messed it up. Sorry. Those are presets that I've saved. And like final ones, I have like other ones I like a little less. So once again, we're going to name this Terry White stream test preset. Now, just to go over this again, sometimes if you're making presets, the things that I would avoid doing is I would avoid including sharpening or noise reduction, because once again, a preset goes onto several different images and you never know exactly what you're going to be putting it on until you have it. And so it doesn't really make sense for you to have sharpening and noise reduction on. Plus, I find sharpening can be very unflattering depending on the image. And then second, I would go ahead and turn off exposure, because I know that sometimes you shoot things differently and you just want to make sure that you aren't doing too many wild things to an image. But you just hit this check, you're done. It says add to save presets. And now, obviously, like before, I could just press and hold this. And at the bottom, I hit copy. I can copy my settings, and then I could maybe select these photos and I can hit paste, and it would apply those just like that. But let's say we're in the future, right? And I'm like, man, I really want to apply these to these photos from Chosen Family. These pictures of Kurt, right? So let's pick a couple of these. Or just pick one of these, right? I want to open it up, and I would go to presets just like I normally do. And lo and behold, I go to saved. There's Terry White test stream preset. And it's all the features that we had before and ready to go. So the other thing that's cool is on the desktop, you can, your presets sync across all platforms, which is great. But also on the desktop, you can export your presets. So if I make one that Terry thinks is cool, although unlikely, I could just export the file, send it to him over email, Dropbox. I think you might even be able to text the file, and then he can just save it directly and go from there, which is pretty cool. And also, if I, just to call back to yesterday, if I go to, one second. When you go to my profile, if I go to the discovery files, for example, this photo, this is our original, and it'll show you how I work through it. If any of these files, you can scroll down to the bottom and hit save as preset. I already have this saved, so it doesn't give you the option. And then you can keep that preset and edit like that person throughout. And you can find these files in the Lightroom app for free in the guided tutorials and the Discover area.
Very cool.
So let's get into some edits, because I promised I would do it. And Terry and I got excited to talk about the phone and light, and then I just wasted everybody's time. So
there's lots of candidates in the editing space. Some I can't wait to get to from a sky replacement standpoint.
Oh, so why don't I do 2 and then you do 1, and we kind of go from there.
All right, sounds good.
First and foremost, we have this photo from the illustrious Arabella Espinosa, who's also an Adobe Live host. She has a great podcast called Per Our Last Email. That's just, Terry, you got to be on it. Honestly, I would love to listen to you on that podcast. It's about dealing with clients that don't know what they're talking about. It's great. So this is a pretty simple image.
So it sounds like you're trying to get me in trouble is what you're trying to do.
Terry, it's impossible to get you in trouble. You are in trouble. You use too much. It's funny. I got a COVID test yesterday or 2 days ago, and I felt like I was in timeout because it was on set. So I had to sit in a corner and not speak or like touch anyone while we were waiting for the results. And it was so strange because people were trying to say what's up to me, and I was like, I can't like breathe near you, so I need you to move away. So what I'm looking at with this photo first and foremost is I know that our main focus are these shoes.
Oh my God. Like I didn't even look up and I was working on the same one. That's
Wow.
So, I just looked up and it was like, oh, you picked the same one. I was like, am I sharing?
I thought it would be a good photo to start because I know a lot of y'all are, fashion freaks and like growing influencers or influencer hopefuls. And so you want to show off your clothes. One good way to do it is having a nice clear background and some good leading lines. So here in the foreground is dominated by this line. And then there's a little bit of lines here. So they picked a really nice spot to kind of have these. I like this photo. I am tempted to crop it, but I think I kind of like the energy here. So first, I want to go ahead and I want to just bring my contrast up a little bit, bring my exposure up a little bit, bring my shadows up a little bit. And so when I did that first, if you'll see the difference, you see just the shoes a little bit more clearly. The next thing I would do, just to get like real aggressive with it, is get over to my color mix, which is down here in the color tab. Hit red because those are the main colors of those Jordan 1s. I might saturate my red a little bit. So you'll see as I slide what it does. I'm not trying to make them a little wild, but I want to saturate them a little bit and I want to brighten them up a little bit. My goal in doing so is I want these shoes to look brand new and I want them to pop a little. And then I also lastly maybe want to slide this hue over just, let me show you what I'm doing. Hue over just slightly so it's just a little bit more like true red. So now we have those. If we look at our before and after, you'll see that it just looks a little bit cleaner. The next thing up is I actually would play with our vibrance. I'm curious about what colors it brings in. And if we look at our vibrance, it doesn't change too much, but we are seeing maybe the blue will be a little bit deeper. Hold on, I'll double tap to show you. You're seeing the vibrance just adds a little bit more red. Another thing I think is nice that we probably won't get a ton of is I like this blue in the highlight here. And so I might try to use the adjustment brush to see if I darken this area, if I'll get any detail back. Next up, since we've been talking about color grading, like why not? I want to be careful here because our highlights include this shoe. And since the shoe is important, like let's pretend that the client is like Finish Line or Foot Locker. Like we don't want to just be out here like making the shoe look wild. And so since we have a lot to play with in the shadow, I might honestly try to lean into the red a little bit and like make it just a little red, just like this. You see it's too much, it gets really overwhelming, but just a little touch of red is here. I can blend it a little bit in a way that I like better. Now, next up, I would actually go down to my clarity because remember, I was talking about how I like to use clarity to get like punch and detail as long as I'm not using it on someone's face. I like to use texture more for that. Particularly, Terry said something yesterday. I'm trying to remember what it was that I thought was really clever. I think you said that clarity alters the tonal values too, which can just not be the best for someone's face. So let's put our clarity up to something aggressive like 22, 21. And so now we're in a good spot. Our before and after, we're seeing like some more detail here. We're seeing a little bit more red. And then, like I said, I don't really want to mess with the highlights much because I don't want to influence the shoe, but maybe the midtone, we might be able to add, now green's too much, but let's see if there's another color that can like help us. If we add red, you see it just gets like so aggressive. So I might not even do too much with these midtones. A soft green is actually kind of nice, but my concern here is that this, whatever this is they're sitting on, is already like a light color, so it might just overtake it in a way that I don't love. Lastly, just to mess with Terry, I'm gonna just use curves a little bit. just so y'all see how just bringing down our shadows just makes almost like a little vignette around the shoes, because they're the star of this image. They're like really the only thing in this image that we want to focus on. And then I can make a nice S curve, just a really soft S curve to give this some detail. Now, if I was giving this to a client, to be honest, because I'm gonna sound a little OCD, I'd probably try to clean up these splotches underneath this. These are just normal city things, but just something that isn't as distracting, to make sure that basically your eye comes in and you're looking directly at this. But that's something else to keep in mind. Something that could be interesting, but I'm not sure I love it, is making a crop so that your eye kind of comes more naturally into the center of the frame where the shoes are. So you see here, since it's a little wider, it feels a little bit more whimsical, and I do like that. But I would be interested in seeing, like, if I were to add a crop, and if I'm not sure about the crop, I could also head down to geometry, which is at the very bottom of the edit panel. Instead of going to auto, we're going to go to guided. And here you can draw some lines to let it know what you think is straight. So let's just see what happens if I make this foreground like table thing or length thing what's straight, and just see what it does. So draw that in. It's kind of hard to see because the background's also white. Now this would be what it would look like if I made that straight, which obviously we don't like, but what happens if we constrain the crop? Not super bad, but we lose a little bit of the city. Now that could be helpful depending on what you want. I personally don't love having this much foreground of this, but maybe the piece in itself is an interesting one. And let's just try one more guided just to like get a feel. We'll make this building our main. So we'll make one horizontal line, one vertical line that's supposed to be straight. And see, we don't like that. So I'm actually going to keep it exactly how it is. And lastly, I'm going to go over to our adjustment brush. And I'm going to try to paint in our sky a little bit. Just because I want to see if I can get any color back here. So remember, if I hit 0, or actually, it's not 0, if I hit O as in the letter between I and P in the English keyboard, I can go ahead and kind of toggle what I'm seeing. And this red isn't something I'm painting onto the image. It's just showing me where I'm selecting. And then if you zoom in, you'll see that this hard circle, there are two concentric circles. The inner circle is the strongest part. It's kind of like the inverse of an eye of a hurricane, versus the edges are it's feathered. So it's like a little bit softer. So like, for example, if I'm painting here, you'll see that it's not bleeding over onto this line as much. And the reason for doing that is to try to make it easier for you to make really kind of fine selections without, doing anything super wild or detrimental. Let's kind of finish this up. I know Terry's itching to show me his edit, so I'm just gonna not go too long. Terry, does anyone have any questions while I'm just kind of plugging away?
Nope, just comments about the crop. Some people like the crop, some people like the original.
I know. It's all it. Oh. What am I? Oh, I'm zoomed in. I was like, what is happening right now? Okay, brushstrokes back on. Oh, you know what I did? I think I accidentally, yeah. I think I accidentally hit exit and it closed everything. So we'll just do this really fast. I essentially didn't realize I was zoomed in. I thought I had hit some sort of weird full screen situation that I didn't know about. So I was trying to get out of it. Sometimes I do dumb things. So anyway, we're filled in. Here, instead of just immediately making it hella dark, I would just see if I can. Yeah, you're getting a little bit of blue. It's not a ton. I wouldn't use exposure here because I think it's going to do some bad things. But if you paint it more evenly, that little bit of blue might be nice because it's still sitting in this beautiful piece of white. But this additional blue just makes it feel a little bit more attached to things. So up here, I think needs to be lightened. But down here, there's some blue and some niceness to add to it. And since this is a raw file, we have the ability, just like we were talking about before, to like edit this a little bit easier. So now I'd like use this eraser to just kind of, I would turn the flow of the eraser down a ton. I would just soften what I did here. And we'd have something like this. So we went from this to this. So this feels like very sneakerhead culture. Like I wouldn't necessarily edit this in my daily life like this, but if someone was hiring me, this would probably be closer to the edit I'd work on and have like a nice red tint to go with the shoe, some contrast, a healing brush to clean this up, and just kind of leave the shoe as the hero of the image. Terry, what do you think?
Good edit. I like it. It just also shows that when you're shooting raw, how the potential of bringing back details that you couldn't even see. Like I would have just assumed that sky was completely gone, but the sky, the details are there. You were just able to pull them back out. So I'm going to jump into an edit or two really quickly here. Ricardo's asking a question. What's the biggest draw you could pitch about this version of Lightroom directed to someone who doesn't want to leave Lightroom Classic? So I've got an easy answer for you for that.
Terry, can I unshare my screen so I can see what you're doing?
Hang on.
Okay.
Yeah, hold on. Let me
sorry, y'all. I want to see what Terry's saying here because I get this question all the time.
So Ricardo, easy. If you don't want to leave Lightroom Classic, no one's trying to make you to. Don't leave Lightroom Classic. Like there's no reason to pitch something that you're not ready to do. And you said don't want to leave. So that means you don't want to leave. So stay where you are. There are two different Lightrooms for two different sets of customers or feature sets. So for the customer that says, I don't want to be responsible for managing my storage. I want, just to shoot on any device and have it synced and have it in the cloud and not have to worry about backing up my images and all that. That's what the new Lightroom, that would be my pitch to that customer. Yep. For the customer that says, I'm happy with Lightroom Classic, I've got everything managed the way I want, I know what I'm doing there, I would say absolutely stick with Lightroom Classic. So there is no pitch that someone needs to convince you to switch to one or the other. If you're happy with the one you're using, stay happy. All right, so with that said, let's pop over to my screen here.
Yeah.
And I've got, these are the submissions we got, minus one or two that may not be appropriate for large audiences. But anyway, these are the edits we got for the most part. And I'm going to, although Andre said I could do one, I'm going to do two really quickly. So let's jump
you can do whatever
one.
You want, Terry. Ooh, look at this guy.
I figured as much, but I was being polite. Anyway, let's pop into this one. Since I work on portraits all the time, and again, I'm not, by the way, when I look at all these photos, my job today is not to critique your photography. My job is to show you what I would do with the photo you took. So based on the photo you took, and again, I'm just randomly picking them here, the first thing that jumps out at me on this particular photo is that the white balance is off. So I would go in to my edit. I would go to, actually I was in the right spot. I would go to color. And I would grab my white balance eyedropper. So you can see that you have some choices. As shot, auto or custom lets me know right off the bat that this is a JPEG. Yeah. Or a raw file, then I'd be able to choose cloudy, sunny, so forth and so on. But I don't have to worry about any of that because I've got the white balance eyedropper. I would just click it. I would normally look for something that's neutral, like a gray, or in this case, I don't really have a solid gray to pick from, but I've got this, what should be, I'm guessing, white background. When I click it, it just instantly fixes that tone for me. Because when it comes to editing, it's about, I can't move on to something else as long as something's really distracting me. And what was really distracting me was the white balance. Now,
how did you, Terry, just for folks that don't understand, how can they tell? How do you, what's your first thing? You're like something isn't right. Yeah.
Something isn't right because that background, unless I saw a lot more of that color, like that's like a purplish, bluish background. So typically it looks like a white wall. So unless there's a light on it trying to make it that color, I just can tell the color's off.
Yep.
Now, maybe the photographer did that by design, but again, it's how I would edit it. So I'm seeing that as not by design, but like a mistake. So I'm just going to go ahead and just grab the white balance and click it. There we go. Grab the white balance and fix that. Now, with that said, I would still go in absolutely under edit and click auto and have Lightroom make some more adjustments for me. So when I go to lighting, a bunch of my sliders have already been moved by me hitting auto. So if I undo and I hit auto, those are the adjustments Lightroom chose to make for me. Now, I may not agree with some of those, and that's fine, but it gave me a nice starting point. So one of the ones I wouldn't agree with is I still think the shadows could be even brighter on this photo. So I would probably bump up the shadows a little bit more. Not too crazy, maybe something like that. And at this point, now the next thing that's distracting me is this line on the wall. And again, I don't know if that's a crack or what that is, but whatever it is, I'm really big on distractions. Now, so the question is, do I fix that distraction here in Lightroom or do I fix it in Photoshop? And where I'm making that determination is I would start asking myself, well, if I do it here, which I could attempt to do that here and probably be successful. Is there anything else I need to go to Photoshop for? And if I'm saying, oh yeah, there's some other things I'm going to do in Photoshop, then I'm not even going to waste my time doing it here. I'm just going to go do it all in Photoshop. But let's say I'm not going to do anything else. So then I would just grab my healing brush and just literally paint this line. And Andre showed you a little of this yesterday. And it will then pick a spot where it thinks it needs to heal from and pick the spot right next to it. So you can move this around. You can say, no, pick it from this spot, but it did a good job, so I'm good. And the beauty of that particular adjustment is that was not destructive. So if I ever needed that crack or line or whatever that was back.
I really need that line to do whatever.
I could really get that back. That the customer say, oh, no, we need that. That's part of the story. Then I could bring it back. And again, at this point, I'd be nitpicking about things. So like, for example, the next thing that brings my eye to it is whatever this is under his arm. So looks like the same kind of thing where I would grab my spot healing brush and just maybe paint that away in two different pieces. Because it might be kind of hard to do it all as one.
Yeah.
And so like in this case, it really, oh, okay. I was going to say I grabbed a spot that was weird, but in that case, it's okay. And then if we zoom back out, now I'm a whole lot less distracted, but now the only thing that's distracting me is kind of this dark area over here.
Yep.
So I might grab an adjustment brush. I might start brushing this area. And here you will use the letter O that Andre taught us to see where we're brushing. So now that I've brushed this area and got this area kind of brushed in, so I got it masked basically. Now I could go in, hit the letter O to turn off the mask. There we go. And then I can say, now that I've got that, I can go ahead and maybe bump up the exposure. Whoa, not too crazy. Bump up the exposure in that spot, or maybe bump up the shadows in that spot to kind of just make it not so dark in that one little corner.
Yep.
All right, and again, I could just go on and on and on. So he's got like a little bit of a hot spot on his forehead. So I may attempt to fix that here, or may be easier for me to
Photoshop.
Or Photoshop. So it's like really, it's literally up to you. So at this point, I wanted to go fix that one little thing in Photoshop.
Take us there, Terry.
Command Shift E on Mac, Control Shift E on Windows, and that will take us over. And then I can zoom in. And I can see, oh, okay, there's not only a hot spot, but there's also a pimple. So let's go ahead and take care of both of those.
And to be clear, Terry and I mean, my skin gets pimples. That doesn't happen to Terry. But something to bring up for the folks that are asking about the studio stuff, this is a good example. I'm sure this was shot with one light. So actually, I'll let Terry explain what he's doing, and then I'll explain my point after. Sorry about that.
Well, I'm going to attempt to cheat and do it fast with the patch tool, as opposed to trying to clone that all in and do it, take my time. Patch tool is doing a fairly decent job of just patching out some of these hot spots. and just making the lighting look more evenly. But this is what I meant by earlier, the person that said they were on a budget, like just using a light modifier so your light is not so harsh.
Yep.
So that you don't end up spending so much time editing because you've got all these hot spots in your photos.
Yep.
So just softening that light, bigger soft boxes, shoot through diffusers.
Yep.
Whatever you can do to not have the not have to do all the work in post, just because the lighting wasn't as good as it could have been shooting with that one light. Now again, that's just a quick, subtle retouch, but it just makes all the difference in the world. So especially if we go back now, we save this, we close it, we head back to Lightroom. It will put it next to the original
as a TIFF, right?
As either a TIFF or a PSD. I can't remember what Lightroom does versus Classic. But oh, hang on.
Wow, look how much softer that is.
Here, we can do it this way, I think. So that's our before, and that's our after. Just, it makes all, again, was this okay? Sure. But is that just less distracting? Absolutely.
Yep.
So that's my first quick edit. The next one, this one's just
oh wait, Terry, real quick. Can you go back to that one? So I don't do it a ton, but this, I guess, would be the best time for us to talk about doing a linear adjustment for that area that's in the shadow, because technically, right? I never do it, but people have asked me about it. Would you like to do it since it's already open, just so folks can see it? So not to direct Terry, but I know some folks have asked about it, and essentially the brush can give you the option of like a brush, or you can have it so that one spot in a circle and radial is strong and then it feathers out, or you can have it so when you draw a line, it gets stronger from this spot or weaker from this spot. And that can be helpful for moments like this where it's like hella dark in that corner.
So the linear gradient, it's basically allowing you to make an adjustment from lightest point to the darkest point. So for example, that's the linear adjustment over the whole photo. And if I go the other way, if I flip that around or just recreate it, let's see if I can flip it. Nope, hang on. Let me just undo it. It'd be easier for me to do it over again. There we go. So I can make that corner darker, or I can make that corner lighter just with that linear adjustment. So another way to do it without having to brush.
Yep.
All right, real quick. So this particular photo, a couple things in this photo. Number one, the sky is completely washed out, gone, which that's okay if that's what you want. But the thing that's not what's bothering me the most. What's bothering me the most is that the image is slightly crooked. So if you look at the horizon line, it just looks like it's leaning more down to this side. Now that may not be the case. Those buildings may be going straight up and down, but it doesn't look like it to me. So first thing I would do is go in my crop tool, and you can try and auto straighten, or you can just tilt it and just tilt it to where you use the grid to line up the buildings. And now I can see that image is straighter. All right, so now the thing that is bothering me is that white background. And it just is now whenever I see any sky, it just makes me say, "Ooh, I wonder what that would look like with a different sky." Now that replacing sky is so easy. So let's go into Photoshop, Command-Shift-E, Mac, PC, Control-Shift-E.
That song, "Sky Full of Stars," was written by Terry and sung by Coldplay.
And because it's so easy now, like this is something I probably wouldn't have taken the time before 2 weeks ago to do manually, but now with sky replacement just being a click away under the edit menu, and that's not necessarily the sky I would use. I would probably pick something a little bit more dramatic, maybe something like that.
This is nuts. This is nuts.
This is
nuts. Sorry,
I know.
I've actually never seen this happen live. Yo, my man.
Yeah, so you have blue skies, spectacular skies, and sunsets built in, but you can, of course, click the plus sign and add whatever images you want that you have great skies of. So if you've been collecting great skies, now you've got a chance to use your own. And I recommend using your own because, I kind of like this one too, because after a while, we're all going to know what these look like, the ones that are built in. So if you use your own, then it's like, we never saw that one before. So it's literally your choice. Even if I just went with a solid blue as opposed to that white makes a big difference. But I kind of like this one because I kind of want to lead into her with that. So I would probably still pick that one. Click OK. And it creates this all as a layer group. So you can always turn it off, turn it on, and get right back to your original anyway.
This is wild.
So now,
wait, Terry, where is that? Man.
Edit sky replacement.
Sky replacement, boy.
I know, right? Yep. So anyway, so now that I got her in place, now, and I'm looking at her against my new pretty sky. The next thing I would probably look at is that. Oh, wait. And there's one more thing I forgot to show. Let me undo that. Let me go back up to that sky replacement one more time. Let's choose that sky that it used last time. The sky's not static. So if the sky is big enough, you can move that sky around. So you can actually scale it. You can move it around. You can position it wherever it looks best to you as well. So just keep that in mind that if I thought that cloud was too close to her, it doesn't have to be that close to her. I can move the sky around. And you can scale it as well. So if I wanted to make that sky bigger and still move it, I still could. So I can get more something like that from a composition standpoint. Now, once I've done that, the next thing that's now kind of distracting me from that is that the sky is a little bit brighter than she is. And we always go to the brightest thing. So if I were back in Lightroom, that'd be easy, but I have the camera raw filter. So let's go ahead and do a couple of things here. Convert for smart filters. So I'll convert her layer into a smart filter layer. Then we can go to the camera raw filter where I can go in now and start playing with maybe the overall exposure of her image, which that just brighten up everything. But I can also add a radial gradient, a radial filter, like just on her face. And I can say, I just want to brighten up her face to kind of just be brighter than, or at least as bright as that sky.
As the sun, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. That's kind of more of what I'm looking for. And I can always also darken the sky. So I could also go back to that sky image, which is that. And I could go in and perhaps use an exposure adjustment for that layer itself and just bring the exposure down. That's bringing down the exposure of everything, but that's okay. I'm going to make it a clipped adjustment in just a minute. And then we'll clip that to just the sky. And I can always go back and play with that and say, how bright do I want that to be versus her? All right, so because I've got sky replacement now, I can't look at a plain sky ever again. I'm just always going to be going, wonder what that would look like with a different sky or one of my own skies or a sky that I took 5 years ago that I really liked and now I could use.
So is it sampling the skies from I can't remember Adobe stock, or is it skies that you put in?
Both. So it comes with a set of skies that are stock. You could use them as much as you want. And then you can add your own. You can add as many of your own as you want. You can even create your own folders of your favorite skies or your daytime skies or your sunsets or whatever you want. So here's our before and here's our after. All right. You're up next.
Wow. I don't know how to. My man just showed me how to. That blew my mind. All right, let me share our screens again. I look like a plebeian here. Terry's out here replacing skies, replacing people. I don't even know what's gonna happen next. Ooh, all right. So we did this one with Arabella. We've been showing Arabella a lot of love. She's not in the chat, so I had to text her a photo. Wildness. Here, another thing on. If before we go in any further, you'll see that it tells you this is a JPEG or a CR2 or RAF. That means it's a RAW file or not. I want to do this photo next, but actually, yeah, we'll do this one next. So this is a good example of, let me zoom out, of an image that you can take this like right now. You just get one light. This was photographed with a Nikon D750. Terry, do you know anything about that camera? I don't know.
The 750 is a decent camera.
Nice. You'll see that it was photographed on a 50 millimeter 1.8 at 3.5. Something that I like to live by, but everyone's different, is just because your camera goes to 1.8 doesn't mean you always have to go there. I usually try to be a stop or two above that. So you get the 1.2, so it's really good at 1.4, at 1.8, 1.6. 1.8, you want to be at 2. So this person shot at 3.5. So you're getting a little bit of this background in here. I don't want to do a ton to this, but I do want to start and say that I want to bring my shadows up a little bit on the image just to flatten this out. Another way to do it, although Terry disagrees with it, is I could just slide the black point on my curves up a little. That way I just have a little bit more bandwidth to play with. I think I love contrast, but I always like to keep it till the end, because contrast, without realizing, when you want to make your image more punchy, you can accidentally just make it kind of hard to see. And since I have black women that have really, really beautiful skin, I just don't want to like take away from that and make the contrast too high, and all of a sudden their skin looks like it's a different color. So we did that. I want to bring my exposure up slightly. The next thing I want to do is I want to go to my adjustment brush. I want to zoom in. So you see it's actually a tiny bit out of focus, and this is actually very normal. This happens to me all the time still, where your camera, if you're on autofocus and it's on half press on accident, it might catch something instead of their eyes. So you'll see that we have their necklace, their ears are in focus, their eyes aren't. And so let me pull up so I get closer to their faces. I want to get to my adjustment brush. The light's reasonably even around them. So just paint this in. I'm going to hit O again so you can see it. And I'm just going to bring my exposure up 1 or 2 stops. Let's make it a little brighter. So I'm just going to go ahead and go through here. Going to get these as well. And so now we're going from this to this. You can just see their eyes a little better. Next up, let me get out of my adjustment brush. I might be interested in actually not jumping directly into contrast, but seeing what happens if we add some texture to the image. So you see as I slide it, it's adding just a little bit of texture to the shadows. And as long as you don't zoom in a crazy amount, you're going to see that you're going to feel like it's still in focus. Next, I want to go ahead. I'm probably not going to change the midtones too much, but I might just add a little bit of color to the shadows, just slightly. So I went over and made this just a little, hold on. Like you see how bad the green looks, but a little red. And then I want to maybe blend it a little. So we're going from here to here. So it's soft, but our shadow is like, is adding some color that agrees with the skin of the subjects as well as the background. This shadow is probably, I chose red because it's the natural progression from these creams to this like dark orange, the next one being a red. And then lastly, I'd go over in our highlights and just see what happens if we add a little bit. So it's so much, hold on. Almost there. Something actually pretty similar to that. Or actually, you know what? I'm not going to actually do any of that. I'm curious what happens if we add dehaze, because dehaze always kind of surprises me at what it works on, but we'll leave it alone. Maybe see what happens if we add a vignette.
I haven't met a photo yet that couldn't benefit from some dehaze, but
I still don't really understand. Dehaze feels like a contrast adjacent tool that it surprises me every time I use it.
Have to use it sparingly, because if you add too much dehaze, we'll know.
Oh, no, I'm sure.
Yeah, it'll add halos and all kinds of artifacts if you go too far with it.
So we brought our exposure up a little bit on the curves from this, our highlights up a little bit from this corner. And you see, like, if I click away from it, we're just slowly raising. Now it's bringing up some of the brightest parts of the image. And then just to pretend to have an S, we're going to bring down our darkest parts just slightly. And now it does feel a little too orange. So I'm going to go back, bring our saturation down 1 peg. Vibrance up 1. And then lastly, if we look at our before and after, we're still in a reasonable realm, but I just want to make sure that I'm not brightening or darkening anyone's skin too much. So I'm just going to go to color mix, go to orange, bring the saturation down, and bring the luminance up. So get something like this. that's a little bit brighter. And then lastly, we can add a touch of that contrast. I still actually am not thrilled with how I had the shadows look, so bring those up, but we would go from here to here, just brighten up a little bit, try to add a full dynamic range of highlights and shadows. But I like this image. I'm curious about the light source. It looks like maybe it was a large light that was a little bit further away. But if I was shooting this, I would ask my subjects to sit up a little bit more straight, just so like here we don't have this like awkward cut, and then here there's less like wrinkle. But I think that the background's a really nice choice of texture and color. And there was like some really good decisions made here. So I like that image.
All right. Before you move on, can I show one thing on that particular image?
Absolutely. Do you want me to do it, or you want to do it?
I'm going to do it. I've already done it.
All right.
That's why it'll be quick.
All right. I'm going to stop sharing screen so I can watch. Show me.
All right. So here's the image that we started with. And one of the things that beautiful portrait, beautiful choice of background. But the thing that we've all done as photographers is we get a background out of the packaging and we put it right up. And it's got all the folds and creases in it. So take a few minutes to steam that background so it's nice and not distracting from your subject. And then, or if not, at least take it into Photoshop and manually get rid of those wrinkles. And that's your before and after there. Now, while we're on the subject of wrinkles, and this is, again, just it's a clothing thing. So there's little wrinkles here and there I could take out, but those don't bother me as much as when I see wrinkles coming off a person's clothing from the side or from the back. So like there's one little poof sticking out here, and it's just easy to take care of that in something like Liquify. So if I go to Liquify, and it'll take 2 seconds to do it. If we zoom into that area, just that one little part that's poofed out, again, that's just clothing, nothing to do with her. We just take our warp tool and we just kind of just push that back in. So just that one little piece that was sticking out, not have it stick out, just makes a difference because it's just one less thing your eye is going to be drawn to. Now, while we're on the subject of lighting, again, overall, good job. And I think Aundre kind of talked about this from, hard to tell where the light source is in this particular spot or shot. But one of the things I might do is I might also just go ahead and add a little bit more light to their faces. So once again, Camera Raw filter or Lightroom, either one, and add that radial filter. And just add just a touch of exposure, which I've already got a touch. So this was no exposure. That's where we were, and just brightening up. It's almost like you're adding just a little spotlight right there, and you can move it around and position it, and you can even see the difference of before and after, just adding that one little bit of light, and you can do another one here and get the same thing. So just that's what I would do on that photo. Look at the difference. This is where we started, and this is where we are.
Yeah. And Terry's right. My learned lesson is you can use a steamer. Don't use an iron. Ironing cloth background is exhausting. You're literally just like, I'm going to burn my whole arm off. Yeah, use a steamer.
Steamer is much quicker and easier in that case. All right, go ahead. Back to you.
Ooh. Let's share screen again. Oh, I had it shared and I unshared like a dummy. All right, so let's look at this photo. This is a pose we all love. First and foremost, I would either have my subject put their foot down or take a step back so I wouldn't cut their leg off. It's fine from the ankle, but just as a note for me, that what I would say portrait-wise is you want to cut someone a natural part of their body. So if you're taking a photo, you can cut them at their shoulders, you can cut them like right around their breast, belly button, waist, mid-thigh, knees, and ankle. Here it's just tough because ankle for this leg is fine, but ankle on this one, since you can see their leg, leaves you wondering like, where's the rest of their body? So this is like actually a pretty straightforward one. I want to bet you that this, Terry, you want to guess what this aperture is? I'm going to guess 4.
Sounds good.
Let's see. 2.8. I lied. So you can tell because there's like good focus. There's enough focus plane to get her hat, her face, or excuse me, their hat, their face, and a little bit of this plant. But once you go on, you're getting like some nice bokeh and these trees, etc. I know that the general rule is to not have anything poking out anyone's head, but I find it really helpful to just figure out what it is. Like this is fine because you can see the top of it, but maybe take one step to your right or left to give your subject like a little bit of clear headspace. This is also an Arabella photo. Jeez, Arabella. So first I would like brighten this up a little just with exposure because I want to open it up. Next, I want to bring my highlights down because I just want to see. Actually, no, we'll leave them there. I'm going to do some more things in curves because this is just funny to do at this point. So here I'm making like a calm S curve. I'm just not a big fan of like any of these like huge sweeping edits, but a calm S curve that just gives us some contrast. Here I wouldn't really do a ton. Oh, I made the mistake of pulling when I should push. I was going to warm the image up just slightly. Like, although this white balance is accurate, just adding a little bit of warmth, making the tree behind her a little more yellow is pretty nice. And also, something I would do is I'd go over to my color mix and I would actually bring the saturation of the greens down just a little bit, just to make sure that the subject is popping. And then lastly, go over to my adjustment brush. I'm hitting the bracket keys to make it larger or smaller. Paint this one area. Y'all are already used to me painting. Then I'm going to bring my exposure up just a little so I can see that eye a little bit. And I'm going to do this. Oh, actually, let me go over here and make a new brush spot right there. It's important to do that because you see these eyes. One is a little bit more light than this one. And so if you edit them the same, it will not go well for you. So we have something that feels kind of natural. Let me actually crop so I can get this leg out of here and see how we feel. It's okay. I might like I don't know if I love the crop, but here feels like we're in a slightly more natural position. And we're not wondering like it's, if you can't see a part of someone's body, but part of it's presented to you, it's like arresting for the viewer. So I wouldn't do anything wild here. I just keep it really simple, brighten their eyes, warm it up a little bit, and make sure that my highlights are right. That's that. We'll hop out of that. Let's head over to, a lot of us love to take pictures of our food. And food can be tricky because, a photographer's job is to accentuate really cool things. And food is strange because, you might think I'm going to photograph this thing that I find delicious, but it might not be what's the most delicious part. First and foremost for this, since this is a open face sandwich, maybe, there are two or three angles for food that work really well. One that's directly above. So like if this phone was my food, shooting directly above it, and at a slight maybe 15 degrees from there, or at eye level, because you have to remember, like, you always want to present, not always, but often as a photographer, you want to present something to someone in a manner which they're used to seeing it. So eye level is like when you especially have like a burger or something, photographing that at eye level makes it feel big and juicy and like kind of commanding, kind of like a child having their first favorite piece of food. And then at a slightly higher angle, so you can kind of appreciate everything else that's in the dish. So like angular, I don't love this. I'm going to do something that I would never actually do in real life, but just to make a point. We go down to geometry, and we're going to go to horizontal. And you'll see that you can rotate the image on an axis. I find this actually really difficult and kind of amazing to do. This is my one moment. But if you do this, I personally feel like this is just slightly more appealing to look at because it's the angle with which you look at the food. Next for this, you'll see that the light's probably coming from above because there's a soft shadow right here. You can tell because the plate changes colors randomly and unevenly from this corner, which probably reflects these tomatoes. So I would increase my exposure a little, not too much because this this ricotta or whatever, you can't like abuse it too much. Honestly, I would actually, if you see what happens when you add the contrast, it does a little too much. So I would actually bring my contrast down so you can see more things. Since it's not a human, I would add more clarity. I want these tomatoes to be a little bit more red, a little more juicy, so I might saturate them a little bit on color mix. And so this is just to have like take a nice photo of your food you want to put in your Instagram story, or tweet it out to talk about a restaurant you really like. You just want to make sure you're doing your best. And also, don't forget that you can crop. I wouldn't crop much more here because I don't think that there's enough space to do everything that you want. And so that would be like my kind of very basic edit. Like you just want to do like a quick 45-second edit of a piece of food that you photograph that you took that you want to share to your followers and text to your parents or whatever. Like, oh, I'm back at our favorite restaurant in Philadelphia. I don't know. Excuse me.
Very cool.
Yeah. What do you think, Terry?
I like it.
So let's cut this out. And let's go pick a new one. Let's see. Who submitted this? I'm curious. Shout out to a selfie. Shout out to Amy Jansigus who sent this. So this I guess was taken with an iPhone. Yep. You can see on the 10, this little corner lost this little corner for her. Remember that your phone can tell you exactly where things were taken, which is pretty wild. That's what this map is on the right. But here I wouldn't actually do too much. So this is a pretty white dog. It's even more pale than its owner. So I would go to over to light. I'd bring my exposure up a little bit, just a few hairs. Then this is a good one to have contrast in because the subject and the two subjects are around the same color of skin and hair. And then there's not a lot distracting in the background. For the most part, it's just a little bit of leaves here and there. I'd bring my highlights up. Like I don't want this to just feel super bright and fun. Bring my highlights up, bring my whites up. I wouldn't actually take my shadows down too much. I'd actually, or up, I'd take them down a little bit because I want to make sure that I'm still getting this shape in directional shadow here and here. And so to do that, I think it's really helpful to maintain those shadows. We're not going to do any curves here, so Terry can rejoice. We're going to go over and maybe let's see what happens when we add just a little bit of warmth into the highlights. So here we just went, if you'll see, like one nice thing about split toning is once you select a color, it'll show you kind of in a line from that color, what color you chose, which can be hard to realize as you're moving around these circles. So we just added a little bit of warmth to it. This is almost like when you go to the photo filter feature in Photoshop and you just choose, I think it's B5 or something, like a warming filter, just a really, really soft one. Because this is like a joyous thing, you know, if you generally see someone hugging their dog and it like makes you feel excited, right? And so we want to reflect that in how we're editing. Terry said that dehaze has never hurt anybody. So let's see.
Dehaze used sparingly.
No, I'm all about the sparingly. And let's bump it with one more.
We got about 8 minutes left, by the way.
Man, this keeps creeping up on me. So that's how I'd edit that. We'll look at our before and after. A little bit of glow around the pup, you know, still feel that joy. I might also, one thing I like to do when I photograph folks or when I edit folks is I will actually use the adjustment brush on their teeth just to get like brighten them up and make it just a touch wider. I guess we're not going to show the mascara, but oh, there we go. Paint these over. No one has perfect teeth. I'm not saying that, but what I generally do is I'll like brighten it up a little and desaturate it slightly, just in case there's like any like slight discoloring or anything. You can kind of sneak that away. So we'll bring our saturation down to 10 and we will take these away. And so just a little brighter, a little bit less yellow in case they are yellow. And now you have that really kind of natural smile that you expect and aspire for. Terry, you got one?
I do.
So
Marina just joined us. Hello, Marina.
Hey, Marina.
And let me pop in here really quick. So, by the way, I'm not going to get a chance really to edit these. I just want to point out these are just really good.
Yeah, that's my boy JR. What a handsome man.
JR, there's not a whole lot I would do to those, so just good job. But there is one here that popped in that I'm like, this could be better. It's like so one of the things that always makes me want to like, or when I see a dark photo, it always makes me want to brighten it up. But sometimes I have to realize that that may be the mood the photographer was trying to capture. So one of the first things I might do, since this is a raw file, I would go ahead and switch it to portrait. And then I would go ahead and do auto to auto tone that. And even auto decided that it should be a little brighter. But let's say that we don't want to make it quite that bright. So I might pull the exposure back down just to kind of bring that mood back in the photographer might have been trying to create. But at the same time, I'll use that same trick of a radial filter right on the face. Am I getting my radial filter? Why is my radial filter not pulling out?
Maybe it's too big.
Hold on. It may be that I'm just wasn't seeing it. There we go. Okay, so let's click back on it. There we go. I'll pull that radial filter back out. And just in that one spot, I might do a couple things. I might adjust the exposure up just a hair. And I also might warm up her face or skin tone just a bit more. So just so that she doesn't look so cold and so, yeah, see, I really want to brighten it. But that's about where I would go with that particular portrait. All right, we got 4 minutes left. What would I do?
Can we do one of JR's photos? Just maybe add a little saturation, a little brightness. I want to see what you would do with these.
Yeah, so real quick, JR. So first of all, I would take a look at what I typically do with people is I check the optics and I enable the lens profile, if there is one for that particular photo, to adjust any bowing or curvature that might be happening from the lens. After that, I would also just quickly do an auto just to see what Lightroom thought I should do. And again, I may or may not agree with it. Saturation looks fairly decent. I don't know that I would go too far on that, or at least the vibrance, I mean. So let's go into the vibrant. Yeah, the vibrance got bumped up a little bit with the auto. That's about right. And I might go in because it's like a sunset, sunrise kind of photo. So the temperature is really warm. So I might go into my temperature slider and just pull it back just a hair. Maybe not, maybe just ever so slightly. And last but not least, on the effects, because again, I haven't met a photo yet that dehaze can't just make it a little bit better. And if you look at the kind of bluish sky above his head, sliding that dehaze over just a little bit brings that sky in just a bit. Not too far. That's too far. You start getting artifacts, but just a hair on the dehaze. And lastly, then I start looking for distractions. So the one distraction in this photo is down in the bottom right-hand corner, whatever this is, just needs to go, whatever that little black spot is on the bottom right. And that one, and that one. Just getting rid of those distractions. But good job, JR.
Nice. Nice.
All right, here's one. We got 2 minutes. So just this one. So really quickly, two things I would do this photo there. I do more, but two things I do right off the bat. I'd hit auto, see, just bring a little auto tone for that. And here's an adjustment brush trick when you have a cobblestone or a stone street or anything like that. Grab your adjustment brush and start, here, let's see it. Here, let's make my brush really, really big so I can get this done quicker. But let's brush in that whole street.
Okay.
And what you're going to do with that, you're going to give it a wet look. And it's just two sliders you need for that wet look. You're going to take your clarity all the way to 100.
Wow.
And you're going to take your contrast all the way to 100. And if we turn off the overlay, this is our before, where it looks dull now, and that's our after.
Wow.
Now, let's say it's not wet enough. You could do one more thing. You can add another adjustment brush. So I'm just going to click the brush one more time.
Oh, I didn't know you could pile on.
Yeah, you can pile on as many local adjustments as you want. So I'm going to brush on another one. Maybe you wanted something in between 100 and 200, so you drag the sliders over to 50%. But in this case, I do want both sets to be at 100. And now that I got it all brushed in, we'll take that clarity slider over to 100 again, take the contrast slider over to 100, turn off the overlay. And again, this is our before. Look at the difference. Look at how dull that looks. This is our after, where it just really makes that streak pop. Now, again, you might also say, well, yeah, it gave it that wet look, but it also made it too bright. So you could go in and just pull down exposure too.
Exposure, the highlights, whatever. Yeah, that's good.
And then you get that nice,
it feels very Tuscan-y.
Right, a nice, fresh, wet pavement look.
I'm about to watch Chocolat.
Those 3 sliders. So I said 2 things. Last thing, really quick. I go to my geometry because it just looks like this image is off. And I would go in and I would draw a line here. And I would draw a line here for my
guided adjustment.
My guided upright. And there we go. And I might still go into my crop and just tilt it just a little bit. So just quickly, again, before, after, before, after. And we are, with that, we are out of time.
Oh, we're out of time. Hey, everybody. Thank you. It was so cool to hang out. I'm actually gonna move into Terry's house, so we'll be streaming every day for the rest of eternity. If you'd like to see that, please mail Terry a brand new Tesla, and inside of it, just write "More Aundre." His address can be found in the comments.
By the way, that last photo, you know what it's begging for? Sky replacement. I'm not going to do it now, but it's begging for a sky replacement. All right, so
thank you, everybody. You can follow me. All the apps are in there. Behance, Twitter, Instagram. I stream sometimes. It's not as high production as this, but if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. Once again, Terry, thank you for sharing your platform. Thank you for being patient with me, and I appreciate everyone for showing up. We can answer questions whenever, so send DMs. Behance, if you follow me, it'll let you know when I'm going live, and goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Twitter, Instagram, Behance. Pew, 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 pew.